All right, number 5, I have positioning. So you do not need to be the April Dunford of positioning in order to have some understanding of it and be able
Just
to
read her
take,
book.
yeah, read her book. Honestly, it's amazing, and she does have another one in the works as well, which I'm sure is going to be equally amazing. Um, yeah, so definitely read her book. Obviously, awesome. April Dunford. You don't need to be an expert in this. You do not need to try to replace a consultant who spends all their time thinking about positioning. But what happens as a copywriter is you will get hired to write copy, and then you're going to find that the two pieces before copywriting are incomplete or missing altogether. And those two pieces are positioning, or the next thing that we're going to talk about, which I guess we can just include here, messaging strategy. Those two things inform copy. So being able to jump in and critique what they've done, add to it, edit it is super important if you want to be able to write copy that is actually going to be like consistent across the org, even after you leave as well, which is obviously key.
And just
Um,
can I just
mhm.
add for anyone who like because the terms positioning and messaging get thrown around a lot, and so
True.
the way that I like to sort of think of them is I think of positioning as like who are you, what do you do, and who do you do it for? There's obviously a lot more that goes into it than that, and like definitely go read Obviously Awesome as we've told you to do already. But and then messaging is more like what are we going to talk about, what's important to our audience,
Yeah.
and then and so that comes after positioning. So
Mm-hmm.
that's positioning is the highest level, most strategic part of this. Then messaging, what are we going to talk about, and then the copy is the actual expression of the messaging. So that's
Yeah.
your actual execution. That's how you're going to say what your messaging strategy is. So yeah, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, because a lot of times people will use the term positioning when they really mean they're talking about just like framing something a certain way, like, oh, we want to position this as whatever, and they're just talking about copy.
Yeah.
Um, so
So true.
just to be clear, positioning is its own discipline, and it's unbelievable how often you'll find companies asking you to write copy when the positioning really isn't figured out. And you can sort of suss those things out with if you're talking to people, different people at the company, and you ask them what the product category is and who their target audience is. If you're getting different answers from different people in the company, or they don't have like that any clarity there, it's going to be hard to write copy without getting those things figured out first.
For sure. And if you don't get those things figured out and you just start writing copy, you're probably going to please one person, and then a bunch of other people are going to be like, really? This isn't what we're selling. This isn't who we're selling to. Why are you writing this copy? And so that's why you need to have that all in place. And I guess a cautionary thing that I would add here when we're talking about positioning is resist the urge to create a category. Um, if like to me, that should be like the last option when positioning just isn't going to work. I think too many people jump to this idea of creating a category simply because the work of trying to compete with the people in the market seems hard. And they're just like, well, we're just going to create this new thing that no one else is competing in, and then we'll win that category. And it's hard. We can talk about that another time, but really what you're trying to do is get people to care about and understand a completely new category in addition to selling your product. And that costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. Do you agree with that, or are you on the in the create a category boot camp?
I mean, I've read and listened to positioning experts, sort of debate these things. But to be perfectly honest, like I think that that's a little bit outside of the scope of like what I do. Like I need to understand what they're doing, right? So if someone tells me, oh, we have like a head-to-head positioning style or carve out, whatever it is, again, all stuff you can learn in April's book. I need to understand that, and I need to be able to ask questions to my client about it, and I need to be able to sense when it isn't rock solid or hasn't been figured out. But it's really not something that I include in my services to tell someone about whether or not they should be creating a category or competing head to head. I view that as something that is, for a positioning specialist.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.